April 1986, Moscow Hospital number 6. A young woman stands outside a ward door. Inside, her husband. He is 23 years old. She is pregnant. A doctor looks her in the eyes and speaks plainly. That is no longer your husband. That is a radioactive object with a high degree of contamination. If you go in, you will kill yourself. You will kill your child. She nods. She hears every word. And she walks in. Her name is Lyudmila Ignatenko, and what she did over the next 2 weeks is one of the most devastating love stories of the 20th century. A story the Soviet state tried to bury. A story the world learned too late. Today, we go there, into the heart of Chernobyl. Not to the reactor, but to the people who lived, loved, and died there, while their government lied to their faces.
Some cities were built to look like the future. Pripyat was exactly that. Founded in 1970 specifically for workers of the nuclear plant, it was a showcase of the Soviet dream. New apartment blocks, wide boulevards, an amusement park with a Ferris wheel, a swimming pool, a cinema. The average age of its residents? 26. A young city. A city where everyone knew each other, where children played outside until late into the night, where the evenings smelled of spring and possibility. Vasily Ignatenko was a firefighter. Tall, broad-shouldered, always laughing. Lyudmila said he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. They married young. She was pregnant with their first child. On the night of April 25th to 26th, 1986, Vasily was on duty at fire station number 2, right next to the plant. At 1:23 in the morning, he felt the explosion.
The dispatcher shouted into the receiver, "Fire at the station. The roof is burning." A routine call. The firefighters put on their standard canvas gear, not protective suits, and drove out. Nobody told them this was not a routine fire. Nobody told them that Reactor 4 had exploded with the force equivalent to 400 Hiroshima bombs. That radioactive graphite was scattered across the very roof they were about to walk onto. That the radiation dose on that rooftop was lethal within minutes. The firefighters walked across burning blocks and picked up chunks of graphite with their bare hands, thinking they were just debris. Some said they felt a metallic taste in their mouths, that their skin began to burn. They assumed it was the heat of the fire. It was not the heat. Vasily worked on that rooftop for 3 hours. By dawn, he and 28 other firefighters were lying in Pripyat's hospital. They were told, minor poisoning, rest and you'll go home. Lyudmila knew nothing. She was asleep.
On the morning of April 26th, Pripyat woke up as normal. Children went to school. People went to work. Weddings scheduled for that day went ahead. Newlyweds posed for photographs on the bridge overlooking the plant. The pink smoke rising above Reactor 4 looked almost beautiful against the spring sky. At that same moment, in the offices of party officials, they already knew the truth. They knew the reactor was completely destroyed, that radiation levels in the city were hundreds of times above lethal dose, that immediate evacuation was necessary. They stayed silent for 36 hours. For 36 hours, children breathed radioactive air. For 36 hours, people drank water from their taps. For 36 hours, Lyudmila walked through the city not knowing her husband was dying in a hospital just a few blocks away. When Soviet officials finally announced the evacuation, they said, "Take your documents and food for 3 days. You will return." They knew the people would never return.
Vasily and the other firefighters were flown to Moscow, to the specialized hospital number 6, the only place in the entire USSR equipped to treat acute radiation syndrome. Lyudmila found out where her husband had been taken from a neighbor. She packed a bag and left. At the hospital, they refused to let her in. "Family only," said the nurse. "I am his wife," said Lyudmila. She lied and said she was not pregnant. They let her through. What she saw inside, she would spend the rest of her life describing. The husband she knew
joyful, strong, handsome, was disappearing in front of her eyes. Radiation sickness dismantled the body from within. Skin came away. Organs failed one by one. Every day the doctors told her, "Do not touch him. Do not kiss him. Keep your distance." Every day she nodded. Every day she sat beside him and took his hand. "I couldn't watch him from a distance," she would say years later. "He was my husband. I loved him." For 14 days she stayed. For 14 days while Soviet doctors filled their journals with clinical data on the progression of radiation sickness, Lyudmila held her dying husband. On May 9th, 1986, Vasily Ignatenko died. He was 23 years old.
Lyudmila received a radiation dose that by every calculation should have killed her. She survived. Her daughter did not. The baby girl was born with multiple heart defects. She lived only a few hours. Lyudmila never said she regretted walking into that ward. "I was with him until the end," she would say. That mattered more than anything. The Soviet state classified the story of the firefighters for years. They were buried in sealed zinc coffins, their bodies too radioactive for open funerals. Families were given small payments and asked to stay quiet. The world learned of the Ignatenkos only in 1997, when Belarusian journalist Svetlana Alexievich published Voices from Chernobyl, a book containing Lyudmila's recorded monologue. That book was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature.
The lesson: Chernobyl is not a story about a reactor. It is a story about what happens when a system places secrecy above human life, when a government decides that the truth is too dangerous for its people, when silence becomes policy. 28 firefighters died in the first months. Hundreds of thousands of liquidators received radiation doses nobody told them about. 4 million people lived on contaminated land. Many still don't know the full truth. But here is what strikes hardest of all. In the middle of all that lying, Lyudmila Ignatenko made a choice based on love rather than fear. She knew the risk. She walked in anyway. Sometimes the only honest act in a world of lies is simply to stay beside the person you love. That is the lesson of Chernobyl. One life, one lesson.